Good evening. My name is Dr. Carlos Rios. I'm the superintendent of San Felipe del Rio CISD. I want to start our conversation this evening by first thanking you for coming to your child's school to discuss some critical issues that our district is currently facing. Although we're facing some critical issues, I know that your goal and mine is the same, to provide the best quality instruction for every child in the school district. I want to today specifically talk to you about campus overcrowding, the current attendance zone study, a 5-year enrollment forecast, the new elementary attendance zones, and forecasting the future, providing some recommendations from the Citizens Committee. In discussing the overcrowding issues, I'd like to recall that a few years ago, the district made the decision to close down Cardwell Elementary at Travis. Travis Elementary is where I did my first and second grade, but because of some issues with the campus, the district moved the Cardwell pre-K population to East Side. And while that did provide a great campus for our pre-kindergarten students, it also reduced the number of elementary campuses from 8 to 7 elementary campuses. So the fact that we reduced the elementary campuses, coupled with the fact that our population continued to increase, combined to increase the overcrowding at our campuses. So as we sit today, we have overcrowding, particularly at Garfield Elementary and at Buena Vista, with the other campuses sometimes being underutilized. So let's for a minute discuss how overcrowding affects the daily life of a campus, and particularly the instruction. First, campuses such as Garfield and Buena Vista have had to give us specialized rooms intended, for example, science labs and art rooms to be used as additional classrooms. In discussing with the principals, I understand that Garfield has had to give up their science labs for classrooms, and Buena Vista has also had to give up 2 science labs. They've had to give up a regular classroom to be able to offer art to all of the students, as well as give up the reading room within the library. Another issue has to do with the repeated necessity to request from TA waivers for the classrooms that exceed the recommended class size, specifically 22 students to 1. When we increase the classrooms by more than 22 students, it creates challenges in focusing on the student achievement, specifically the opportunity for deeper and most rigorous instruction. Obviously, the smaller the class size, the more one-on-one attention we can give to our students. And finally, I think we will all agree that there are issues with traffic safety. Some community members have approached me about what other solutions can we take besides rezoning. And in conversation, I've shared that the district has already had 2 major attempts to reduce the overcrowding. The first one has to do with eliminating the amount of non-resident students from attending campuses here within our district. Specifically, we have all talked about the white vans in our district. And I want to share with you today that through the Office of Student Services, in collaboration with the campus administration, we have reduced the amount of non-resident students from attending our schools by well over 100 students. We've identified them, we've asked them to provide addresses, correct addresses, and in the end, we have withdrawn well over 100 students. But still the problem of overcrowding persists because our population, particularly at the elementary level, has dramatically increased over the last 5 years. The other attempt has been the implementation of a policy to reduce the number of students assigned to campuses outside of the residential attendance zone, including limiting the number of transfer requests. While we have tried to increase students attending their neighborhood schools by reducing the transfer request, again, the population has just increased dramatically to where that in itself has not been enough to contain the overcrowding. That leaves us with just one other solution, which is rezoning. Looking into the future, we also recognize that rezoning only solves a problem for a limited number of years. We fully expect for our community to continue to grow. In response to that reality, we formed the Citizens Committee to help study the current situation and provide recommendations for long-term solutions. After 3 meetings, the Citizens Committee recommended the construction of 2 additional elementary campuses. Next, they recommended that our students be served in a K-6 environment versus a K-5 environment. I'm excited about the possibilities because serving our students in a K-6 environment will in effect free up the San Felipe Memorial Middle School to be dedicated as a magnet school for the district. This means that in the near future we will be able to provide a 6th through 8th grade STEM magnet school where our students can be prepared to excel in some of the high school programs. This is something that most districts desire, and so many of them have moved to implement. I'm definitely excited about the future, excited about the Citizens Committee recommendation, and look forward to seeing this plan fully implemented in the coming years. I want to spend some time talking about the overall health of the district. In conversations with various community members, whether I talk with the leadership at Laughlin Air Force Base, our business community, or just citizens in general, we always have discussions about how our schools can be rated better, particularly by the Texas education system. We know we have some issues at some campuses. We also know we've had some historic issues with our bilingual population. And then I would add that we all need to be reminded that the population the school district serves is 74% economically disadvantaged. So to improve the overall academic achievement of the district, it's important that at some point we address every population in a manner that's sustainable and that will lead to higher results. But we can't just wish that the problem goes away. We actually have to do something very strategic and very significant. And these strategic and significant actions are often hard to implement because they involve change, and it involves everyone doing something different, whether it's our teachers or whether it's our parents or whether it's the leadership in the school district. Change isn't easy. It is very difficult, but it's that difficult change that's going to give us the results that we need. So working together, I know we can do something wonderful for our community, but again, we must come together and understand the problem and be willing to do something about it. Let's talk about our bilingual population for just a minute. And let's consider Buena Vista Elementary. At Buena Vista Elementary, there are currently 90+ bilingual students enrolled. These are students that live within the current Buena Vista attendance zone. That's one reality. The second reality is that prior to considering a different bilingual program, Buena Vista was scheduled to lose 235 students because of overcrowding. The fact that Buena Vista will be a bilingual center does bring in an additional 90 students from the North Heights Elementary School attendance zone. But this only means that the 235 students that were already scheduled to leave the Buena Vista attendance zone will also now have 90 additional students to leave. But let's not confuse both programs. The bilingual program does create the need to rezone an additional 90 students. But I want to be clear, 235 students were already scheduled to be rezoned from Buena Vista. The same could be said for the other 2 bilingual centers, which will be Lonnie Green and Chavita Elementary. I would hate for there to be some confusion and for people, citizens, to think that they're having to be rezoned because of the bilingual population. It does add some to the rezoning, but very little, because Buena Vista was already an overcrowded school and there were other campuses that were already being underutilized, and we need to bring balance to it. The other issue has to do with what other campuses have to deal with, particularly the campuses that have been low performing over the last year. They serve a disproportionately at-risk population when compared to the other districts. So therefore, the rezoning does allow us to bring balance to most of the campuses. And by bringing that balance, the campuses will have a better opportunity to have a better academic rating, thus making the whole district more attractive. Because like I said, at the end of the day, we want pilots to come to Laughlin, to want to come to Laughlin. We want businesses to relocate in Del Rio. When we recruit doctors and dentists and veterinarians to Del Rio, they ask about our schools. And they don't just ask about how well our UIL program or our robotics program or our athletic program is doing. They take a snapshot view of the district as a whole. So it's the district as a whole that we have to work to improve. But that involves a tremendous commitment from each and every one of us. I want to bring your attention to this next slide. If you consider the third grade enrollment at Buena Vista and North Heights, you will see that Buena Vista at the third grade only has 7 bilingual students that are beginner or intermediate, and North Heights also has 7 students that are beginner and intermediate. It's inefficient to provide 1 teacher for 7 students at every campus. So without a bilingual program such as the one that we're implementing, Buena Vista's 7 students would more than likely be in a regular classroom. What ends up happening is that the 7 students either don't get the quality instruction that they deserve, or the other 15 students who are regular education have to have their instruction interrupted to be able to provide for the specific needs of the language limited students. Therefore, it's more efficient to bring the 7 students from Buena Vista and the 7 students from North Heights together into one classroom. Therefore, you could dedicate 1 teacher to provide the adequate bilingual instruction without interrupting the instruction of other students. We have to face a reality. The teacher's time is limited to teach everyone within one lesson, and even more limited in planning adequately for that lesson. So we have to strategize, and we have to do the adequate preparation for the learning, which is what we attempt to do with this program. I'd love to have further discussions about the bilingual program, but that's really not the purpose of this meeting. I just want to make sure I shared at least one example with you. You can see for yourself on the slides the remaining examples that make just as much sense. So let's move on to talk about rezoning. To begin our discussion about rezoning and the need for rezoning, I want to bring your attention to this next slide. If you look at this next slide, you can see the enrollment of a campus versus the residency. The point here is that if we consider Garfield, for example, and consider Buena Vista, you can see first that both current attendance zones at each one of those campuses have well over 900 students that could possibly request enrollment at those campuses. These are students that actually live within those attendance zones. Then we will all agree that these numbers are entirely unhealthy for any one campus. Our goal would be to have our student enrollment at every campus approximately at 700 students. If we consider the column on the right, we can see also that Garfield and Buena Vista currently have well over 800 students enrolled to the campus. So whether we look at the kids that are enrolled to the campus or the kids that live in the neighborhood, both numbers indicate that the numbers are too high. Therefore, we have to either build more campuses or rezone. We'd like to do both, but we cannot wait to build additional campuses. We must rezone now, otherwise we will not keep up with the continued growth of our community. This next slide describes for you the current capacity of the campuses versus the enrollment and what the capacity of the campuses are compared to the rezoning and the student enrollment after it's rezoned. So let's look at this slide. You'll see that Garfield has a capacity of 750 students. However, currently, the number of students that reside in the attendance zone is 932. Again, Buena Vista, a much smaller campus, has a capacity for 700 students, yet there are 969 students that live within its attendance zone. If we consider the numbers after rezoning, we'll see that the numbers almost even out throughout the district based on the capacity of the campus. But the overall efficiency, which means the number of students enrolled versus the capacity of the campus comes much closer. I hope this begins to help us make a clear argument for why we have to rezone. Again, the next slide shows Buena Vista having a current enrollment of 861 students. But according to the demographer who did an in-depth study, we can see how the enrollment continues to increase, and by 2018-2019 there will be 966 students enrolled at Buena Vista. The same can be said for Garfield. Current enrollment is 880 students. Over the next 5 years, the enrollment will grow to 907 students. It's already unhealthy to have that many students in one campus. Now, we are hopeful that by 2018-2019, our recommendation, the Citizens Committee recommendation to build 2 additional campuses will take care of that problem. So now let's talk a little bit about what rezoning means for your child, means for our children. If we rezone and we bring a balance to the district and a balance to the campuses, it means that students can again begin to have their science labs where they can do their rich science experiments. They can have their specialty classrooms, whether it be choir or art. They can have their library for the use of library. In a whole, we can bring the entire instructional program back the way it was intended and have richer results at each and every campus. And for the community as a whole, better balance clearly will mean better success. This next slide shows the new district's attendance zone for each campus. Also, you should have received a letter indicating where your child will be enrolled this coming year. I encourage you to look at the letter, to study the attendance zone map, and then visit your new campus. We will provide those opportunities and we'll discuss them in the next slide. I'm certain that if the parent works together with the teacher, the child's education will be as good at every campus, but it's that collaboration that will bring that quality education. We encourage it and we hope we can count on it. In closing, I want to review some frequently asked questions with the parents. The most common question has to do with transportation. Will my child be eligible for transportation? Yes, school bus routes will be reconfigured in order to provide transportation to eligible students. Another question has to do with requesting transfers. Parents want to know if they can request a transfer, more than likely back to the school where the students attended the prior year. Again, the answer is yes. A parent wishing to request a transfer to another campus should fill out the transfer request form and submit it to the Department of Student Services. On receipt of the transfer form, it will be dated and time-stamped. During the summer, the Office of Student Services will determine a date to review all submitted forms, and we will let you know just as soon as we can if your transfer request has been approved. Finally, parents have been asking, when will they be able to visit the child's new school? A special open house and or meet and greet opportunity will be available for parents and children to visit the new school. Notices with detailed information will be sent to parents and posted on our school district's website in the coming weeks. In addition, students will be given the opportunity to visit their campus during the school day prior to the end of the year. This means that before the child goes home for the summer, we will give him or her the opportunity to get on a bus and they'll ride over to their new campus so they can become familiar with it. That way, when the school year starts, it won't be something strange. It won't be as if they're moving to a new town. They'll know exactly where they're going to, and there'll be, again, some opportunities to visit that campus during the summer. I want to thank you for your time, especially for allowing us to explain the purposes behind rezoning and the other programs that we're trying to implement. I want to guarantee everyone that the purpose of rezoning is first to provide for the growth of our community. It's growing and we need to be able to provide for those needs. Next, I want to reassure everyone that the purpose of rezoning is to provide a quality instruction for all students, not just one group of students. Everybody will benefit because of rezoning. The smaller class sizes will allow the teacher to create more personal learning experiences with each and every one of your child. I guarantee that going from a large classroom to a classroom that is about 22 students to 1 will provide for that quality relationship between the teacher and the student, between the student and the campus, where the student will have a greater sense of belonging and overall have greater success. Working together, we are sure to provide for the success of everyone and create a district that will be the model for the state. Thank you and good night.